You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night right here on all your favorite social media outlets. Yes, we're actually live this week. That's right. We're not delaying it, not cutting in after an hour of being live and streaming to nobody. We got it right. Restream. That's right. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian, and
Keith Cheatham.
He's back.
I'm back.
He's back again. He was out last week hunting.
I was out. I had a full week last week, but
did you bag a deer?
No deer. It rained. I had multiple things going on last week, but we went hunting for 2 of those days only, sadly. I wish I could have gone longer, but the first day was really nice, and I didn't see anything. The second day, it rained all day, so we knew. I was like, man, it's not. I mean, I was still out there in the rain. It was fun, but I knew that
you got to.
The few times it died down, I hope maybe they'd come out, but we never saw anything.
Yeah,
so.
you just never know when that deer's gonna prance on by. If it's a little wet, soggy out,
gonna pow, pow, pow,
whoa,
pow, blow its head off.
Man, 3 shots. Oh man, you gotta do 3 shots. Woo.
Yeah.
Mm.
When you use
you gotta do 3
you gotta
shots.
use 3 shots.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Pow.
That's it. And who knows where that deer's jumping after 3 shots? It's like, I don't know what you just
It
hit.
just falls.
Yeah, hopefully
After 3
it falls.
shots,
Yeah.
it just falls.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is your aim is so bad, you shot 3 times. It's like that deer.
What if you hit it all 3
You go in the
times?
chest and one
That's
in
just
the
how
head.
fast you are.
Yeah,
You bag it 3 times, like right in a row, same hole and everything.
Dang.
Just obliterate its heart.
Pretty amazing.
Gosh.
I'd be like, why aren't you doing this like
For a living?
It's like that meme of that
How do you know
guy
I'm
in the
not?
Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember,
Oh, the dude with his hand in his pocket?
Oh
And he's
yeah,
just-
yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah.
Baller.
Yep.
It's like
I want to say not only my back, but
Wow.
you didn't have to
It
start
had
it
delay,
up.
but
It-
it's
I
working.
didn't.
It did delay. It always seems like it has a delay the
I got
first
to
one
push
I
it
picked.
last week.
Yeah.
he waited.
Was it working last week, or did he had to boot it up?
No, it
was
worked.
working.
Yeah.
I just didn't touch it. until the end.
Sometimes it likes to work.
Sean didn't touch it because he knows.
He can touch it.
He knows
touch
who
it.
owns it.
I don't want to
Touch it.
I don't.
Okay.
He's afraid.
I like when you touch it.
So Keith, welcome back. Thanks for
Welcome.
coming back. We got a
I feel
slew of
welcome.
headlines. We've got
Phew.
another review that you wrote but didn't record
I
because you
didn't
had such
record
a
it.
busy week.
Yeah.
So I ended up cutting that.
Brandon covered for me.
Mhm.
Yep,
How many times did it take you to read it?
a lot.
curious.
Because Keith doesn't punctuate.
I don't.
he
Well,
sometimes.
yeah, it depends because I'm.
You don't have run-on. Well, sometimes you have run-on sentences, and I'm like, I don't know how in the world you do this in one breath, but you do. You manage it. But see,
I don't really. I think I just punctuate it myself when I'm doing like I don't like I just write it out.
True.
And then when I'm recording, I just read it the way it should be.
Which is why I am looking forward to whenever we actually have the written review online. We only
Yeah.
have like a handful of
Yeah.
those on their
Oh,
website.
I'll go through all those and edit them.
No,
I
I'm
need
just
to.
going to transcribe it through
AI.
AI
AI
now.
do it.
There you go. There you go.
Chat
We can do
GPT, I
that
can
now.
just upload a video or an
Like,
audio
here,
file.
Fix this
Yeah.
real quick.
And it'll
Yeah.
probably do it, and I'll be like, oh my gosh.
All
Wow.
my reviews are rough drafts because once it's recorded, I'm like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, but usually when one sends it to someone else to read,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
proofread it. So it takes at least a solid 10 to 15 minutes of recording and me cussing at myself whenever I miss something because I've got to reread it 15 times. But no, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. That's just, I'm nitpicking. Nitpicking. But no, we do. We have a good review. Was it a good movie? Was not the big one on the block this week because, well,
It fizzled.
yep, it was a $200 million flop.
Yep.
Only busting 3. I read that Red One was supposed to make around 60 to 70 million.
Did they really think that?
They really thought
Wow.
that, and it came nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Nowhere near
I
that.
think domestically it was like 10 and globally it was like 30, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Total was like 35. And
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, 35.
that's
I think.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's abysmal. But the Dwayne the Rock Johnson's not doing it anymore for the box office. I mean, you got him, you got Chris Evans.
Yep.
I mean, Lucy Liu, I thought she was going to be bringing in the dough.
Right.
But we got that review. We got major headlines. We got tons of headlines we got to get into. I mean, heck, we know Conan O'Brien is hosting the Oscars next year. That news dropped this past week.
It's done deal?
Done deal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He is hosting the Oscars.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. It's just kind of I have no faith in the
Who
Oscars.
hosts them? It's
No, I
still
don't-
The Oscars.
That's the thing. I don't think it matters. I don't think
That's true. That's true.
whoever they get is going to be tepid at best.
Yeah.
And even if they have one little zinger or something like that, especially now the way that the election has turned out,
Yeah.
I have no faith at all.
I'd rather Conan than Jimmy Kimmel, though. I'm like, at least it's not
Yeah.
Kimmel
Oh,
again.
of course.
Especially right after the election. It's like Kimmel would get up there and cry.
I think that's what.
He probably would,
I don't want to
yeah.
see it anymore.
I mean, that's what kind of ticks me off, though, about Conan is I feel like he's kind of an outsider, and because of the way they did him dirty
Yeah.
with the late night stuff, I'm like, dude, you have nothing to prove to anybody.
Yeah.
I wish
If he was just his normal self like he was on late night,
Yes.
he had a particular brand of humor that it may or may not have been your thing,
Yeah.
but I would love to see him just be himself. And honestly, I think that's why they picked him. It's
Yeah.
kind of that safe choice.
Yeah.
But I just have no faith in him delivering something that's entertaining because the Oscars just aren't
not.
entertaining.
Yeah.
They just, I mean, and even if he was, they just suck all the air out of the room.
Oh,
with
they
their
do.
own
They do.
large, elite
Because even
heads.
without him, you're going to have all the announcers for all the awards that are going to come up and make their terrible jokes and speeches, and
Yep.
it's just
Exactly. They just
it'll be worse this year because now it's going to be the end of democracy, and they gotta we got to do everything we can to try to make sure it was salvaged and safe for 4 years.
We're in
Yep.
doom and gloom time,
Yeah.
guys. We're in doom and gloom time. That's another one of the headlines. Just a little bit. We don't want to spend too much time on it. We don't need to get into the political doldrums. But we're going to talk about also Mr. Ben Affleck has some thoughts on AI.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play a video, hopefully, that will share where Ben's at these days since he's not
the only thing that could have
with
made it
J-Lo
better
anymore.
if it was a joint effort between him and Matt Damon. That would have been
Damon.
that would have been like that would have put it over the top.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, that would have just been brilliance.
And who knows? Matt Damon we don't know. It's just talk right now. He might reel Matt Damon in.
Matt Damon could be AI. We don't
I think
know
Matt Damon is AI. They've never told he's been AI the whole time.
Alrighty, guys.
He's not real.
Welcome back, Keith. We're ready to dive into
Let's
this week's
do
show.
it. I want to talk about this movie.
This movie. Here is our review of Red One. The following is a review by Keith Cheatham. Once again, it felt like Halloween had barely ended before the stores and media had already begun the barrage of Christmas-themed decor, merchandise, and music. As we come closer to Thanksgiving, the often forgotten holiday, our first Christmas movie release has arrived. Personally, I have an eternal love of Christmas and no issue with decorating and watching Christmas movies around Thanksgiving. After all, Thanksgiving is to remind us of what we are most thankful for in our lives. And Christmas is certainly one thing I'm eternally grateful for. What I am least thankful for are the hollow attempts at celebrating Christmas that Hollywood has thrown at us for the last few years. This year is no exception, with Amazon MGM's latest box office dud, Red One, directed by Jake Kasdan, director of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, and its sequel, Jumanji: The Next Level. Kasdan reunites with Jumanji star Dwayne Johnson for an action-packed Christmas romp meant to be in the same vein as his Jumanji films. Johnson portrays Callum Drift, head of Santa Claus's security, the Elf, Enforcement, Logistics, and Fortification. Co-starring alongside him are J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus and Chris Evans as Jack O'Malley, a black market hacker and tracker. When O'Malley is unknowingly hired by a Christmas witch based on Icelandic folklore named Grýla, played by Kiernan Shipka, to track down Santa Claus, Grýla kidnaps Santa in order to punish anyone who's ever been on the naughty list. O'Malley is subsequently enlisted by the elf to help track down Santa, forcing Cal and Jack to work together in what becomes a buddy cop odd couple romp across the globe. Red One has fared poorly at the box office, receiving a lukewarm reception from audiences and even worse reception amongst critics. While I didn't find it as bad as most critics, it's still a far cry from being a Christmas classic, and will ultimately be a forgotten film.
While Kasdan's Jumanji films were a fun, unique take on the Jumanji idea that never took itself too seriously, Red One is nowhere near as clever or as unique a take on a Christmas film. Kasdan attempts to set the film apart from other traditional Christmas classics, but instead, nothing feels new or unique, just heavily borrowed from other movies. Red One's elf is heavily reminiscent of the elves in the Santa Claus, as is a lot of the infrastructure in Red One's North Pole. A lot of whimsical Christmas iconography is reminiscent of elf, though instead of embracing the traditional magic, Red One bends the imagery towards the action movie genre, but it takes itself way too seriously, unlike Elf, which embraces the wholesomeness of Christmas, allowing for silly moments to be silly, while still maintaining serious and emotional-filled characters and scenes. Aimed at being an action comedy in the same vein as his Jumanji movies with a PG-13 rating, the movie never seems to know who its target audience is. Christmas buffs? Not really, as it lacks the charm and magic of Christmas. Is it a crass comedy for teens and adults? No, but often dips its toes in that direction, making it a hard film to recommend for younger audiences and kids as well. The movie is often all over the place in tone, plot, and humor. Red One lacks much of what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie. Sure, it has Santa and the North Pole, talking polar bears, and even incorporated a lesser-known Christmas folklore like Grilla, but it does nothing with its lore, and even falls back on cliches and lore we've now seen way too often, such as Krampus, a pop culture favorite whose time has honestly come and gone. Despite being full of Christmas iconography, everything just feels rather hollow, without any substance or themes that truly represent the holiday. Instead, it feels like Kasdan was so busy trying to make his movie unlike any other Christmas movie that he missed the point of Christmas and ended up with a generic film anyway. As a mindless romp, the film is okay, and offers a few laughs and feeble attempts at a Christmas message, but ultimately the film falls flat, and won't make it into many viewers' annual Christmas must-watch lists. I give Red One 2 out of 4 stars.
Well, 2 out of 4 stars. As we've said on this show multiple times, there's a positive and a negative side of being right in the
There's
middle.
no positive. No, it's not true.
This is on the negative side.
Yeah. There were some positives, but I probably won't ever watch this movie
Oh,
again
heck no.
willingly. I mean,
I think your review covered it well. To me, this is one of those that it's like, there's enough going for it that I saw the potential.
yeah.
But it's bloated by way too much cliche, generic, feel good holiday spirit stuff you've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
The monikers they use, like the ELF acronym
Yeah,
that you've already heard
ELF
from,
and then ELFS in Santa Claus.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm like, you've already seen this. Plus, there's even a scene where he mentions like the whole, you see it in the trailer with the car where he turns it into a real one.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, do you have a Wonder Woman? He's like, that's not how it works. I'm like, then explain how it works.
Yeah.
Because that, and then you also magically make the robots, as you saw there in the review, come to life and they react in certain ways. I'm like, I hate crap like that. I'm like, if you don't do any world building, then again, it can just become a blank slate to do whatever craziness. And sadly, it just, $200 million, and there's plenty of stuff in this film that I think this is a great one to review so closely to hear.
Yeah.
Because those two movies, we talked about it when we reviewed that one. Talk about not only poor CGI, but this is a problem when you have a blank slate, or a blank check being written, and there's no creativity behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just becomes, a CGI, fest of stuff that just is half baked.
Well, I told you that. I don't know if I mentioned Sean. I think I mentioned in the review, but it really reminded me of like what would happen if Marvel Studios made a Christmas movie, because it was just like now, not when they were good. Sans or post
Endgame,
yeah. But anyways, it is like this PG-13 action romp that I'm not even sure who it's made for.
Yeah.
Like
that's
it doesn't
what bothered me.
It doesn't
Agreed.
attract, like, it's being PG-13 and with some of the language and few crass jokes they have. Like, it's like, okay, is this for adults? Because the rest of it doesn't resonate with like adults or even teenagers. They're not going to care about talking polar
Dude,
bears.
I hate to say it, the women in bikinis on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it, but it's like I'm a dude, but at the same time, when I saw that, I was like, okay, these like bikinis are so revealing,
Yeah.
and they're so intentionally put on display that I'm like,
this is not even. Yeah, I wouldn't want my kid to be watching
And
this.
it's not really a kids movie, but it's not good enough or mature enough to, I think, attract adults either. So I'm like, who is this for? Just the immature teenager that's going to watch it and get a laugh? Like, that's why it flopped.
Yeah, that was my biggest gripe with the movie was I felt like it was a kids movie with a lot of cussing and a lot of sexual innuendo. And that was where I was kind of like lost on what is this supposed to be, because it definitely didn't land for me in a funny way. Like, I didn't think anything in it was funny except for the Krampus slap or whatever. That was the only thing that I thought was funny, was when he puts his hand up to the Rock's face and it's like bigger than his head.
Yeah.
And I thought this is hilarious. But then there really was nothing else in this film that was comical for an adult. I felt like all of the comedy and everything was catered towards a younger audience, but then you have the language that's in it, which I'm a big boy. I watch movies with cussing all the time, but I'm sitting here thinking this could have been a really good kids movie.
Yeah.
For this season, and if they had made this movie PG, I think it would have put way more butts in seats. But
Agreed.
Again, you do have some of those things that are kind of questionable, and you're like, this is definitely not made for kids, but or is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean,
Well,
even
and it's odd because even as him being the director of Jumanji, both
Yeah.
of those, I'm like,
Those are better.
They're
Yeah.
PG-13, but they err on the side of like
Yeah.
young teenagers.
Yeah, they
This
don't-
didn't.
Yeah, they don't walk the line like this one did with a lot of the language and stuff like that. The Jumanjis, they got an ass in a
Hell
dam
or-
or hell every
yeah.
now and then, but this was way worse. I just thought, even the polar bear, dude, if you've seen the freaking Golden Compass show that HBO did,
Yeah.
No, the good version,
the
not
new
the-
one, the new one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
is-
the movie.
His
it's-
Dark Materials.
The freaking
Yeah.
polar bear it's like they borrowed the assets from that show and used them in this. Like, it's even got the same scar on his nose that the one in the HBO show
might
has.
have.
It's very, like, it borrows from a lot of different Christmas films, but it doesn't use any of the borrowed material in a creative or good
No.
way.
No.
I really didn't get any kind of sense of like that kind of Christmas spirit from this movie, which really disappointed me, being the first Christmas movie I've watched this year.
Yeah.
I was just like, this doesn't feel like Christmas at all. They tried to land some of those themes and messaging with like, oh, people are way more naughty nowadays, and the Rock's kind of like he's lost hope in people, and Santa, J.K.
Oh,
Simmons.
dude, the first 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes, I was solid.
When he's
I
giving them like
actually-
his speech about, well, that's
Yeah.
why we're here, is to try to, we can't change people, but we can give them hope. And I liked that, but then they don't do anything like
Yeah.
it
I
just
even
falls
liked.
flat.
I liked that J.K. Simmons goes from the fat Santa Claus to a buff, like ripped, like lifting weights, and the fact that even he jokes around and he's like, "Yeah, I know you got 430 million calories you
to
got to
burn."
burn."
Yeah.
Like, I actually thought that was funny and an interesting take.
Yeah.
Again, this is in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and it's like all of their originality from that point on is gone.
Yeah.
And every little scene that they tried to set up, I mean, even Chris Evans, it was cliche, but the whole scene introducing him and him being a hacker, or not even
Yeah.
just a hacker, just a
The way he tracks and
right.
Yeah.
Just the way he's into mischief and he's
Yeah.
able to deceive and get what he wants.
Yeah.
It showcases, okay, but think about it in terms of Elf and him going after to try to find his dad, and he's like, he's on the naughty list.
Yeah.
They play that mantra, the same
Oh,
drum
yeah.
beats that we've all seen time and time again, that they hit on, and they do nothing interesting with. And like I said, all the originality is done within the first 10 minutes, and then it's out the window.
Yeah.
Then we're right back into CGI North Pole Fest that has terrible looking graphics. Again, my problem with these huge ballooning budgets is that they have no originality, or they have no taste. They just think, oh, glitz and glamour are what's going to put, even the set piece, the very set piece of him chasing to save Santa on the way out of the North Pole as he's being kidnapped, was just like, there was nothing interesting about it. It was just from one moment to the next, with no interesting twists or turns in terms of how it was choreographed. Again, that to me is the problem with a lot of these huge movies or these movies that have huge budgets like this, is they really don't take the time. They're just like, oh yeah, no, we can make this look like fancy, because again, it goes back to the fix it in post mentality. and it doesn't seem like they actually lend themselves to any creative talent whatsoever. So I'm with you. I think a 2 out of 4 stars, erring on the bad side.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would say it's worth a watch, especially getting closer to the Christmas season when there are other great movies. I mean, I think of Scrooged.
Yeah.
Scrooged is one that it's an interesting take on an old classic, but also has more of that, again, adult humor and adult style.
Heart.
But it has heart.
Yeah, this movie had none. It tried. Like, I told Keith next door while we were having cigars, I was like, I really like the idea of kind of the people that work Christmas are losing hope in humanity and the goodness in people, and that people are kind of losing that childlike belief and faith in this kind. And the fact that he sees Chris Evans, a guy who's on the naughty list, finally do some good, and it kind of restores, hey, maybe there is hope for grown-ups and for other people. And I liked the idea of the Krampus and how him at Santa are at odds, and then he ends up showing up to try to help out at the end. And I like that moment where it's like, you want to come back and hang with us for a little bit, brother? And he's like, no, let's not push it. And I really thought that was, wow, you had something there, but then you didn't really. You dropped the ball.
Yeah. I'm honestly just kind of over Krampus because I feel like he's overplayed. I didn't think he was bad in this movie, but it's like once that became a thing, like everybody's like, oh, we were. And I did really like that they used like the Icelandic folklore of Grýla. I was like, oh, that's unique because nobody ever, like, I can't think of any movie using, because I Googled it. There was a link in Wikipedia. Her name was a link. So I was like, oh, that's weird. What's that mean? So I clicked on it and found out the Icelandic folklore. And I was like, oh, that's something different no one's done before. But you didn't, like, she was just this generic evil witch. Like, there wasn't anything interesting
well, and
there.
even that exactly what you just said, but even the fight scene with the snowmen on the beach, and I thought they were going to do something where, they end up, I don't know, taking up the sand. I mean, also, too, before they even get to the fight, when they're on the beach, I'm like, it just looked horribly green screen. It looked like they weren't even filming on location. They just green screen most of the beach anyway. But even the fight just looked so generic. Again, a generic set piece to try to get, raise the tension and get you more invested. And I was like, the trick of taking the carrot off of their face.
Yeah, that was so easy. Like,
I just thought that. I was like, they thought it was the way they hinted at it and it happened. They thought it was clever, and I was like, no, I didn't see it being clever at all.
Easy. It's just like, oh, look, you just beat them by doing that. It's like, oh, okay.
And then I just thought that they weren't really menacing, or again, they were just an enemy that just popped up out of nowhere. That they needed for that instance, and of course he
literally they just came. This ice cream machine just comes, or truck just comes out of the ocean.
I
was like, okay,
and then like The Rock references it like, oh no, we're in trouble now. And I'm like, we don't even know who these
seen
are.
That before.
He knows. He knows.
He
said, ice cream trucks come out of the sea.
I mean, he wasn't Fast and the Furious. Who knows? True. I mean, maybe it could have been Vin Diesel driving that truck.
I think it's a lack of just understanding Christmas as well. You mentioned like part of like them losing faith or in humanity and stuff. And it's like, I think that's part of it, is because they don't understand the idea of faith and hope in the way that when you truly like believe in like the real meaning of Christmas in Jesus Christ, like even if you're making a secular movie and you're not, because Elf doesn't mention Jesus, it's a secular movie, but it's still
Christmas spirit.
But it still understands the point of like faith and hope. Those are key things that are intertwined with Christmas. And it's like, I feel like even nowadays it's just like, well, people are evil, so we don't want to, like, we can't talk up too much about faith and humanity and hope, because deep down people are awful and they're a blight on the earth. And I'm like, well, when you think that way, everything you make's going to be this pessimistic schlop, even when you're trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned it earlier too, about the fact that, with the Santa Claus and films like that, even the Christmas Chronicles, they most of what happens, or most of how Santa Claus does what he does, is magic. Mm-hmm. It's just supposed to be magical. Yeah. And in this movie, they try to explain everything with technology. And the fact that he's supposed to have been doing this for 200 years, how did he do it 200 years ago when they didn't have, amazing wristbands that make things grow and all these robots and all this stupid stuff. Yeah. I'm like, you're taking the magic out of Christmas by trying to explain it with Santa Claus dropping out of the sleigh on a rope and using all these technical gadgets and all this stuff. I'm
I
like,
thought it
this
just
is,
looked terrible.
It did
too.
look terrible.
I
That
mean,
was the
moment
worst part of the movie.
I would say the Rock shrinking and then jumping
Well,
back.
even
It
that,
just
I'm
looked
like,
awful. I was
it's
like, why? though?
Ant-Man did that better, and even Ant-Man's not the best Marvel movie, but the shrinking and fighting and like
But it's
shrinking
like,
the
but,
cars.
but why? Like,
Yeah,
that was
why?
it. Like,
I don't know why
again,
it's in a Christmas
why
movie.
can't
It
you
makes
just
sense
have
for
him
Ant-Man.
fight them one-on-one? Like,
that's what just didn't again, as the movie went on, I'm just like, there's no world building here. They're just throwing crap at you to be like, well, this is just it. Go along with it.
Chris
Christmas,
Evans even says, he's just like, what was that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I agree completely.
100%.
Oh, the freaking when the things come up behind the sleigh and like take the old present container off and put a full one on to to replenish the presents.
Yeah.
I'm like, now we got stealth bombers in the air getting
That's
refueled.
it. That's
like
it.
this is just stupid.
Well, again,
Parkour Santa.
It was just in the end. It was just
What
thrown
is
in there. I'm
this?
like, wait, okay, so
That's how they do. That's how they get to every house
exactly.
in one night.
That's
yeah,
how he does
well, so
it.
how did he do it back in the old days?
They've
Just
always
saying.
done it that
But
way.
they've
Sean.
always
They've
had-
always.
Santa's always had cut.
He's always
brains
Santa's
had
a
had
jerk.
technology.
He's been advanced for years and just said screw humanity. I'm
Yeah.
not sharing
It's just stupid.
He knows how to
Yeah.
use it. We don't.
Yeah.
Because we lose hope.
because
and
he's
faith
the
when we
only one
learn.
that he is
Yeah.
the only.
Yep.
I did like
just-
that.
I like
that
the Santa Claus.
the message
is like
about he's the
how
only
these
one.
things work. Is like, I don't know. I can't explain it. It just does.
But see, that also irked me too, because again, dancing around that message
Yeah.
of they have to have some mythical creature. And,
Yeah.
And look, it's always, we're an adult show, so your kiddies shouldn't be watching. But the idea of Santa's reality, that he is real, there's this like cultural norm, and it's just kind of known
Yeah.
that as a culture we perpetuate that for
Yeah.
future generations. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think that is on a granular level something that is a good of society. Again, it's one cohesive thing that can tie us together, secular or not. I mean, that is the essence of
Yeah.
what Christianity used to be, is a
Yeah.
thread that tied everyone together
Yeah.
in the society. And it's like, yet at the same time, even when he's explaining that, what the essence of Santa is
Yeah.
and how he's the only one and there's no other, he's like, I don't understand it. He's the only one that gets it, and because nobody else can do it like he does. It's like, I get the struggle of Chris's understanding,
Yeah.
but then there's no impactful punch to really make you understand on a deeper level what the director and the filmmaker is trying to tell you.
Well, I
and
think
convey
they
to you in this
destroy
scene.
it when you show all the high tech stuff. Like, oh, he's the only one. He's this mythical. Like, you can
True.
understand. It's like if it's a mythical being that you can't comprehend. Like, he's just what he is, and like he always has been.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's fine.
He's got these
something-
cool gadgets over here
But
that-
then it's like
yeah,
when you're
yeah.
saying, oh, it's all this sci-fi. It's like, well, is he this mythical being that only he can do, or is he
Can
all
anybody
this,
do it with all this
Yeah,
technology?
And even, I mean, like you said, even with the Krampus stuff, I'm like, okay, not only has it been overused, but even for them to kind of have that duality of like, well, he's just misunderstood.
Yeah,
and
well,
again,
no bad guy can be a bad guy.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, but Grilla is, again, just for the sake of this movie, they throw her into that
How do they
position.
make a woman the bad guy?
Well, because women are strong. I don't want to go down that road. But the thing is if the fact that Krampus himself becomes somewhat good to help them out, and I'm like, okay, but when they go to this area, it's like a pit of hell or something, this other dimension. I'm just like, again, there were just so many different like logical leaps that you were just supposed to inherently make on your own without any explanation. It just got so muddied so quick that, like I said, after that first 10 or 15 minutes, the movie just meanders and goes down this. It was almost as if nothing was written for the sake of, oh, this logically would lead to this. It was just, I've got this story idea and we're throwing all the ingredients into a pot and we're just going to mix it all together, bake it, and hope that everything comes out the way we intended. And I think it's clear to see based on our impressions and even audience scores. I think audiences are being a little bit more generous.
I think
to
they
it.
like it a little bit. The critic score was 33 on Rotten Tomatoes.
I didn't think it was that terrible.
Yeah, which I mean, again, it's an aggregate, but
And
yeah,
I mean, and we're being very harsh here. I mean,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. But I think the things it did have going right for it were some of the nuances, like I said, that it built in those first few minutes of the film. It had some threads that if they would have just been more tightly wound, I think this actually could have been a genuine movie. And like we kind of already mentioned, if they had just nailed that audience, that tone of the audience, and it's a mixed bag of not knowing whether it wants to be
a young adult, kids movie, or because I think that does play into it where Jumanji you can get away with that a little bit more because it is a more mature content. When you're dealing with a Christmas film, the way you want to sell it is much more family oriented.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, or you have to go the complete opposite route and do a Bad Santa.
Well, apparently,
and that with Billy Bob.
Apparently, the audience, people who have actually seen it, I guess, because I mean, it bombed at the box office, but it's a 90% from viewers. It's 33 critic, 90% viewers. But
you may be looking at a cult favorite coming out of the holiday season.
It could be
a
cult favorite in the future, which is just wild to me. But at the same time, it's like, obviously not that many people saw it unless they saw it illegally because it didn't make any money at the box office.
Well, how many reviews does it say?
It has over 1,000 verified reviews.
That's not a huge amount.
It's not. Usually they go upwards of 5,000 or more, but
so I mean that's interesting, but like you said, I think the people who have decided to go see it have thoroughly enjoyed it. And look, if it ends up becoming one of those flops that turns into a cult favorite down the road,
I still won't watch it.
It's
But
not
that's
for
okay.
me. Exactly. I would say it's not. It definitely won't be for me. I won't be watching it again. One watch was enough.
I mean, he just sells. He does. The Rock.
Yeah.
Well, no, he didn't. So people liked it though. I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't sell this one, and I think his star is kind of fading in terms of what he's been able to sell.
Yeah, that's true.
He didn't sell Black Adam. He didn't sell Jungle Cruise.
I think
There's
people
been a
are
lot
just
of
kind of
movies
tired
that-
of the ego because even in this movie, you could tell it's like there's the rumors about his contracts about not losing fights and not looking bad and this and that. It's like you have to wonder like how much of that is
showing
true.
up late on set.
Yeah, you have to wonder how much of it is true because in every movie, like he doesn't like in his early movies when he didn't have a say, he would lose fights, but he doesn't lose fights anymore. He doesn't. It's kind of like it really seems like you dictate how you want all your characters to look on screen.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, but it's like even with it's funny because he had to eat crow with the Fast and Furious franchise because it was like he needed it to come back. He needed the payday, and so he was out and then doing Hobbs and Shaw, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'll get back in the the A series because Hobbs and Shaw didn't do too great.
Yeah.
I think people are kind of growing tired of him. I am in the sense that, like you said, we've seen the range that this version of The Rock can do. And I'm kind of tired of it.
I'm intrigued by
a
the
little bit more.
The one movie he has coming up that's the biopic of the UFC fighter. That's the only one I'm intrigued by because he did it like the makeup effects at least make he looks like the other dude. And like if his acting can match what they did to make him look like that guy, like maybe we'll see. I'm just
actually it was Dakota from work who did our lower thirds for our multimedia segment. Those last our
influential films.
Films. He actually brought up a good question, which we don't have to get onto it on this episode, but he was like, who do you think between The Rock and Batista is a better actor?
Batista,
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
We've
y'all settled that,
We've talked
man.
about it on the podcast before.
Well, I mean, Batista.
Not in depth.
Okay,
not
we
in
went
depth.
into detail.
But I mean, I've always said Batista does actual dramatic roles well. I mean, he still has some of the bad action flicks, but I mean, he was great in Blade Runner. I was trying to think of the other recent movie he did where he had a serious role.
Knock at the Cabin.
He was fine with that, but that was a terrible movie.
Terrible movie, but he was good.
Yeah. But I actually have seen him do dramatic roles well, whereas The Rock's always just been what he is as The Rock.
Yeah. Well, hell, I think even Batista in Guardians is better than The Rock.
True,
has
it's
been
more
in
varied.
most of the kind of movies that he's done like that.
Yeah, and that one's more of that one is
it's a comedic
comedic
character.
relief, but has some touching moments.
But it has those heartfelt moments. Yeah.
Heck, even as far as like just humor goes, I would put Cena over The Rock as far as comedic work. Cena's hilarious. Now, I'm not saying
I almost
full
feel
out.
like
I'd have to think about them.
Cena's a one-trick pony though at this point.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. He can't pull off serious.
But they both are because The Rock can only do those action kind of like the smack talk type roles.
Or he does the Bautista thing where just like with Peacemaker, he can be serious in certain moments, but he has to have the comedic.
I would have
relief
to like. I'd
break it
have
up.
to see. I don't know that he's been given a dramatic role. I'd have to see him attempt it first and then come back. But we've really not seen, I guess, The Rock do too much dramatic either. So I guess his upcoming one,
Scorpion King.
Yeah. It's like
he loses in that too.
He does. But that was
early on.
But that was
That was
before.
early on,
yeah.
yeah. He
But
didn't
yeah,
have a say then.
after
And Tooth
this
Fairy.
after this UFC biopic comes out and we see how The Rock does with the dramatic role, I'll reassess. But right now, I'm saying Sam Batista.
Okay. All right. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was a nice little
It
aside.
was. I like it, though.
All right. I guess we're ready to get into our headlines. Let's roll that open. All right. I'm going to try to pull this up.
Please
I'm
do.
hoping that it will play on X.
Anytime we get to see Ben Affleck just...
Because I know sometimes the web browser version, I don't think I've signed in on my Mac here. And sometimes the X version of...
See, I got it on my iPad. I don't know.
Oh, something went wrong. Yeah, I don't think it will let me. Because I have... Now,
You
here's
don't
the
have
thing.
like a dongle or anything you can plug into the iPad,
I
do
do
you?
have a dongle on my phone
Okay.
if I need to, but I'm kind of hoping that...
You don't have to go that route.
I think I can maybe sign in... Ooh, Touch ID is actually working for me. It's working. Oh, yeah. We will see.
The only time that's ever been appropriate.
Now that I'm signed in, let's see if I can do it now. Let's open that link.
I'm excited. It's coming.
I think it's coming. I think we're good. Yep. All right, here we go.
I want to, as we kind of wrap up here, I do want to come back to AI. Jerry, you mentioned it, but Ben, how did earlier you guys weren't here? We did a demonstration. My colleague Andrew Sorkin and I recreated ourselves and our voices. How do you see it? I mean, is it a benefit or is it a real threat? Is it possible that a Netflix could say, we're going to do our own, James Bond thing out there with a bunch of actors that are completely recreated for this market or that market?
A, that's not possible now. B, will it be possible in the future? Highly unlikely. C, movies that will be one of the last things, if everything gets replaced, to be replaced by AI. AI can write you excellent imitative verse that sounds Elizabethan. It cannot write you Shakespeare. The function of having 2 actors or 3 or 4 actors in a room and the taste to discern and construct that is something that currently entirely eludes AI's capability, and I think will for a meaningful period of time. What AI is going to do is going to disintermediate the more laborious, less creative, and more costly aspects of filmmaking that will allow costs to be brought down, that will lower the barrier to entry, that will allow more voices to be heard, that will make it easier for the people who want to make Good Will Huntings to go out and make it. Look, AI is a craftsman at best. Craftsmen can learn to make stickly furniture by sitting down next to somebody and seeing what their technique is and imitating. That's how large video models, large language models, basically work. A library of vectors of meaning and transformers that interpret context, right? But they're just cross-pollinating things that exist. Nothing new is created.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. And really, in order to do that, look, craftsman is knowing how to work. Art is knowing when to stop. And I think knowing when to stop is going to be a very difficult thing for AI to learn because it's taste. And also, lack of consistency, lack of controls, lack of quality. AI for this world of generative video is going to do key things more. I wouldn't like to be in the visual effects business. They're in trouble because what costs a lot of money is now going to cost a lot less. And it's going to hammer that space, and it already is. And maybe it shouldn't take 1,000 people to render something, but it's not going to replace human beings making films. It may make your background more convincing. It can change the color of your shirt. It can fix mistakes that you've made. It can make it, you might be able to get 2 seasons of House of the Dragon in a year instead of 1. And if that happens, according to macroeconomics, in cultures where there are basically oligopolies competing, what should happen is with the same demand and the same spend is they should just make more shows, which should, you should have the same spend and now you can just watch more episodes. And eventually AI will allow you to ask for your own episode of Succession, where you could say, I'll pay $30 and can you make me a 45-minute episode where like Kendall gets the company and runs off and has an affair with Stewie. And it'll do it. And it'll be a little janky and a little bit weird, but it'll know their stats, it'll know those actors, and it will, remix it in effect,
right.
And it will do that. That's the value, in my view, long-term of AI for consumers, which is eventually my hope for AI is that it's an additional revenue stream that can replace DVD, which took 15 to 20% out of the economy of filmmaking, which is, and there should be negotiated rights and residual rights to say, if you want to, because what do people want to make? 5-minute, 30-second TikTok videos where they look like the Avengers. Well, great. You can, just like you used to be able to buy your Iron Man costume at the store, you're going to buy your Iron Man pack, and you and your buddies are going to look like Iron Man and Hawkeye, like, on Twitch. That's what's going to really happen.
So what do we think about that?
It's one of the rare times I think that Ben Affleck says something intelligent.
Was he on cocaine?
He definitely. Oh crap! Sorry, I didn't cut from the logo. Yeah, he definitely seemed like he was on. He was hopped up on Mountain Dew.
He was hyper.
He was hyped,
very
but
very much.
Maybe it helps him think, because that's one of those times I was like, hey, a lot of what he said I agree with.
And here's the thing: I was gonna say exactly. There's some nuance there.
Yeah,
and I think he unpacks a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think. And I don't know if his I don't know if it's because he's jacked up on Mountain Dew and cocaine, or if he's just really animated about this because
he's really
because of this subject matter affecting his industry. Because the fact is I think he's right in the short term in terms of people using AI to finesse their likings to a greater degree. Like you said, you could change the color of your shirt, or you can even imitate a favorite series of yours or a movie that you want to maybe even be a part of, and throw it on there as a skin on your character, and it'll make it look like you're in the movie, or vice versa. If you just wanted to make a certain season or series of a show or a movie that it caters to your liking and what you would like to see, it can do that. But at the same time, I think there was some for him to say that it'll never get so good on a certain.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
It's funny because it's like he sounded like he was profane or being profound when he said, a craftsman is knowing what to do, and how to start, but a artist is knowing when to stop. And I was like, but you got to extrapolate that a little bit, because
I agree
like
with
you said,
but I think he could have went a little bit deeper.
Yeah, right. Because I'm like that statement in and of itself doesn't really make any sense. I'm like, you could say it's one of taste, but the idea of and I agree with him in terms of AI and the large language models are all about cross-pollination of what already exists, absolutely, but all of the influence is still culturally is a foundation of the culture that it's a part of. So the idea that even if you were to allow an AI to incubate and grow over time, because that's the idea of any kind of large language model, is that it adapts and ebbs and flows based on all of the data points that it's taking in and mathematically calculating on such a large scale, like, one group, huge hive mind group think. But it still is going to be taking the interest of those who are interacting with it to a certain degree into consideration, that it can create out of whole cloth based on the way certain populations are moving and shifting in terms of thought and in terms of creativity. So the thing is the way I liken it to is, I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, and as he even said, it's going to take certain forms. And to a certain degree, I kind of agree with him when he's like, it'll be Elizabethan, but it won't be Shakespeare. Meaning that, like you said, there's that degree of finite taste that is involved in creating something original out of whole cloth. But if you think about it, it's like, are humans any different? Yes, we're organic, and I think we are made in the image of God from our Creator. That's what separates us. But if you don't hint at that, if you don't pinpoint that being the separation, then we all stand on the shoulders of giants. We are all a product of the generations that came before us.
So, we are an aggregate of knowledge that came before us. Yeah.
So in essence, is that not to what AI is in terms of how it grows and how it learns, is an amalgamation of the knowledge that we've, coalesced in, digital form. Yeah. But it's like, would it get to the point of like the way Amazon can tell that a woman is pregnant based on search results before she even knows, because of certain tastes? And I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, but it's like, there are times where they know before the person knows. Is that not the way that culture can shift so much, ever so slightly, towards a certain paradigm, because AI picks up on certain trends and starts to shoehorn it into the generated content, so therefore it affects the masses in such a way that's so subtle, but in a way that we don't even know.
That's because AI ain't got no soul, okay?
I would think that's kind of where I'm agreeing with him in a sense, is that the lack of the soul means a lack of knowing human nature and humanity and our emotions and what makes us tick. And when he says the artist knows when to stop, I think just to kind of, for my mind, to simplify that is the difference between a filmmaker or a director telling these actors what to do and saying, okay, like, I like the way you did that, but turn your head this way,
Right.
and let me see that tear roll down your cheek. That's what's going to get the audience.
that's better than
the AI is not going to be able to do that. I think the AI is going to produce a product and never think, maybe I should have done it this way, or maybe I should have had them look this way.
Or even moments like I was like our Lord of the Rings night. We just watched Lord of the Rings night like a while ago.
Yeah.
When the flag tears off, completely accidental, but when they saw it, they're like, "Oh, that adds so much to the movie."
Yeah,
you
true.
don't have moments like that with AI.
With the
either,
AI cut
because
that and never leave that in
it
there.
would just like, "Oh, that's not supposed to happen."
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's do it again. Let's run it again
Or
where the flag
if
doesn't
everything's
come off.
100% made by AI, where nothing's actually filmed, which I know isn't a reality now. I don't think it'll never be a reality, like he said. I don't know that AI will never be that good.
Yeah,
but
when AI is controlled by quantum computing, which we just don't have, then I think it has the capability of doing something like that.
But even if something was 100% made, well, you can't have accidents like that happen because it's like it's going to do everything
perfect.
Yeah,
and sometimes those
But
accidents
if it's a
are what makes it.
variable, I mean, but I agree. On a large scale, I agree with you. But AI is going to be able to predict that variable would happen and the effect it would have on a grander scale. I think
could.
to some
I'm not
degree.
saying it
Yeah,
couldn't, but at the same time, I don't know that it will either.
Because that effect is going to be different for every single person.
Yeah.
And that's why I agree, like every film doesn't resonate with every single person.
Well, and actually, that's what I was going to bring into play is kind of what we just reviewed. I mean, with Red 1. I mean, because in essence, like he's saying, in terms of the economics of it, it's like, okay, theoretically, you'll be able to get a second season of House of the Dragon sooner because it can cut down on the, animation time. And yet, and it's funny because I love that he even brought up, he was like, and maybe you don't need 1,000 animators to render one scene. I'm like, one, no, you don't. But two, it's like a lot of the movies that Hollywood makes shoehorns things like that in because they think for some reason that, again, this is the problem. And I'm not saying that Ben Affleck is drawing this connection because he wasn't making this point. But this is where we as critics or even as the general audiences will come up against a piece of content and say, okay, you clearly went for style over substance there.
Yeah.
And the style didn't pay off because it wasn't wholly unique. And you have an issue right now in the industry where sometimes ballooning budgets or depending too much heavily on CGI or these teams who are already heavy laden and burdened with the responsibility of delivering on tight deadlines. And sometimes, like we saw with the whole Sonic debacle back in the day, that the entire production house that did Sonic's design closed down after they redesigned him because the studio was adamant they needed to do the redesign, that they were hired for this job and that they had to do it. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, they do it for the movie to release it to success and fans are happy, but now this team of creators shuts down and goes bankrupt. So it's like, at what cost was that to those who were involved, but also the resources and the time that was wasted? Like like he's saying, there is a great benefit to AI being able to cut down on that, but we already have a problem of too much content, of content overload. So think about it too in terms of the shared nuance that you even have, apart from the group mind, hive mind thinking of AI pushing us in a certain direction culturally. Think about it in terms of us watching The Lord of the Rings together in a room and seeing that experience and mimicking that same experience or emotion that millions of others have seen and being able to resonate with that as opposed to seeing something that is so catered to my individual liking that I can't share that with somebody else because they have their own granular version of that instance. And now all of a sudden it's so apart. You have such individualistic taste that it's hard to even comprehend or even share an experience with somebody because it's so fractured.
Yeah, sometimes if everything you want is handed to you, you don't appreciate it, and you eventually get to the point where you don't even want that anymore. And I think that's kind of like, if AI can create a show that everything happens the way I want it to happen, and all I got to do, like he said, is pay $30 for that episode. Well, eventually I'm just going to be like, I'm tired of this. I don't want it to happen my way every time. What I was thinking of as you were saying that was just the sheer fact that we just saw a pretty bad movie in Red 1, but then you have films like The Lord of the Rings that are masterpieces. With AI is not going to decide to make a bad movie. AI is going to shoot for the moon every single time. And where do we get good movies from if all the movies are the same? If all the movies have that special sauce or that perfect, balance of substance versus everything else, like if AI can predict and know all these variables and put them together to give you the perfect film every time, then when do we get good movies? When do we get films that are good? Well, I'm just saying, we won't want them.
Or when do you get, again, I think this kind of goes back to an old Steve Jobs quote of where he's like, people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
Yeah.
And I think the idea, especially from any individual creator's mind, is that, I actually kind of brought this up and gave credit to Zemeckis a little bit, even with criticizing here, is I was like, at least he's trying something unique. For a director who's established and known. And look, it didn't work. It was a bad movie. But overall, I give him more credit than someone like Scorsese, who I feel like just phoned it in with Killers of the Flower Moon.
At least Coppola tried to do something unique.
Yeah.
Cronenberg tried to do something unique.
I guess you could call Megalopolis and Crimes of the Future unique.
Okay, to be fair, for Cronenberg, that wasn't unique because a lot of his movies are like that now. So, but for Coppola, that was kind of unique.
But the thing is and I think you in the opposite of that, you will get this antagonistic mindset towards AI of, it could never come up with anything like this. So therefore, it's got to be, again, something that is organic and beautiful because it's complete. And I'm like, no, that's where your art house pieces come in, that, of a banana taped to a blank piece, a blank canvas, and that's art. It's like, no, it's not. It says nothing. It speaks nothing. Again, this is the argument that even us, I think, in the circles that we travel in, would argue very much for something like, if you go back to the Enlightenment period or the Renaissance, when you have beautiful works of art that are not just completely abstract, have some foundation in beauty and realism, there is something to be said about trying to imitate. The fact that you can get beautiful figures carved out of marble, and it's like, where do you even see that being imitated or even being attempted nowadays? It's just a bygone era.
Yeah.
It's forgotten.
Yeah, I saw one about the churches.
Yes.
And they were showing a picture of a church that was built in 2018 or something like that, and then a church that was built, 400 years ago.
Right.
And it was
The
just
beauty
like, oh my gosh,
something
like
that
the
was-
architecture.
Yeah,
The
architecture
ornate-
exactly nowadays.
Yeah,
everything's
exactly.
just-
And I think, and it's true, because I don't know if it's Michael Knowles that has said this. I believe it is, but he's spoken on this before, and he's like, you can tell the desperation in a failing culture when you see its architecture, because it's like it's given up.
Yeah.
When it's just bland and you don't care, because
Just squares.
I hate to say it, but part of the wonder of Steve Jobs and the Apple era and its rise, its renaissance before they ousted him and brought him back. The whole point of it coming back was this beauty of this marrying of technology with the arts and sciences. He even said the humanities.
Yeah.
That's the way he said it. He said, to me, good technology is at the crossroads of arts and sciences and the humanities. And it's like, he's right. It's the idea that you can still create something that is attractive and beautiful to the eye, because you're speaking to the soul.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I think really the main thing that Affleck is missing there is he's speaking on it, but he's dancing around it, because I don't think he knows quite how to articulate it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the mind's eye, when you're talking about speaking to someone's soul and that emotion, it's much more than an emotion. It's on a deeper level that you're able to communicate. It's the reason why you can see artifacts or architecture from an era of people that you've never known, never seen, only heard about or read in books, but it can still speak to you.
Yeah.
Because it's on a deeper level than just something that's surface level. And so far, that's all the large language models and the AI has been able to do is just imitate.
Yeah.
It can imitate everything that it has seen. I think the weird and curious thing, though, is as the models get more richer, more detailed, more nuanced, what does that look like in terms of, again, almost in a way of like, and this is kind of going a little bit abstract, but like in Interstellar, when he goes into the Tesseract, and the moment they enter and Tars is talking to him, and he's like, we built this.
Yeah.
The fourth dimension, they're speaking to us. Like, they built this for this purpose. It's like this abstract concept of, again, a God, but having connected to us on such a level that we couldn't comprehend at a given time.
Yeah.
So, in essence, it's like, do you see AI fulfilling a role in society of somehow, again, like I said, shifting or changing things to a degree that it's like we don't necessarily know. I mean, it's clear that we're interacting with it already, but what is it, the amalgamation of what this is going to mean to the society and the culture as a whole? I mean, you could have told me back in 2006, before the iPhone launched, that smartphones were going to change, the way not only humans communicate, but the way we interact on a day-to-day basis, the way we actually consume things. And I would have been like, okay, yeah, maybe a little bit. It's fundamentally changed how culture is.
Yeah. Nobody thought. I mean, I was because I found stumbled upon an old article from when they had talked to the CEO of Palm Pilot at that time.
Yeah.
And they had asked him, like, that was back when the Apple iPhone was just a rumor. Like, the iPod had come out and it was doing really popular. And they asked him, he was like, oh, iPod's booming. What do you think about this rumor that Apple's looking into making a iPod phone? And the Palm Pilot CEO is like, listen, we've been at this for years. We've been doing like the touch screens and the phone. It's like we've been doing this so long. It's like no PC person is just going to walk in and crack the code right off the bat when we've been doing this for years. And then like the very next year, iPhone came out and killed him. And it's like he ate his words hard because nobody could imagine like the possibility until it happened.
Right.
And that's what I do think. There's a lot of things I think AI can't do right now and may never be able to do, but at the same time, I'm not as quick to write it off like Ben Affleck, where it's like, oh, it can never do that. It's like, well, because we haven't gotten there yet.
I think he corrected himself in saying that. He says, like, it will never be able to, and then later on in the same interview, he says that it's like, this is not in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So he words it differently than that.
Right.
But he does kind of draw back to the fact that anything is possible given enough time.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm in agreement. I don't think in our lifetime it'll replace film. I don't even think in my kids' lifetime it'll replace real art and filmmaking. In 100 years, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. And again, with the advancement of quantum computing, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
We have quantum computers, but they haven't been turned loose with AI yet.
Yeah.
And that's where that's kind of scary.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Well, I also think, too, that, again, like he said, and this is the way I think a lot of people think about it in terms of, because it's how we use it now, in terms of it being a tool, a toolbox, and it's a craftsman. I mean, it's like he said, yes, to a large extent, that is the way I think it's being not only rationalized, but approached, because, there hasn't been that one person who's really found the silver bullet of how do you adapt this to be the end-all be-all for and it doesn't, I mean, we're specifically talking about it in the film industry, because that's the realm of this podcast, and obviously in the context that Ben Affleck's brought it up, but there's so many other applications that this could be used. I mean, we're already implementing it at work, and they're trying to get it to use it for like help desk stuff or changing your password. And it's like, there's a lot of overhead that you can cut out that can be very easily dealt with and cutting through, again, time and energy being more efficient. And that is definitely the way in which it's being honed in and utilized right now. All it's going to take is, like you said, Keith, that one person who thinks about it just slightly differently and approaches it differently, that it changes the paradigm and it changes how we interact, not only with each other, but, again, culturally and humanity at writ large.
Yeah.
And we just have not, I think, truly unveiled. I mean, because AI to some degree has been around and relevant. I mean, honestly, it's been in sci-fi for decades.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you really think about it, it's even loosely been there for the last 2 or 3 decades. Very, very subtle, but in even just the smallest little type of automation tasks that your computers could do.
Yeah.
There's been some kind of form of delving into that world. And now we're just getting to the point on mass population scale of interacting with it, because that was always the barrier to entry. You had to be somewhat technical to approach it. But now it's becoming something that's being used on such a very communal, conversational level that it's easy for the average. I mean, again, like back when the iPhone and the iPad came out, the fact that you could hand that device to a child who's never interacted with anything and they immediately, instantly knew what to do with it, that I mean, right there you could already see, okay, the world's completely changed. It's a totally different place now, because you're breeding a now new generation that is going to interact with this at such a level that it is second nature. And it's that kind of thinking of just knowing how to handle it, or at least how to interact with it right off the bat. It's going to come from that generation that is going to be like, oh, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we use the tool this way? And it's just going to revolutionize everything. So yeah, I think that there's just so much that's still left up in the air that I think you're right. I think Ben Affleck was, trying to calm the nerves, whether it was of himself because he was jacked up on Mountain Dew, I'm going to say, or I think it was also him trying to calm the nerves of the industry insiders who may be thinking, like, is this changing everything? I mean, everybody's on it.
It kind of seemed like a question that kind of irked him a little bit. Like he's tired of hearing the AI debate, and he's like, "Listen, guys, it's not going to kill all of our jobs like right away."
Well, especially for an industry that's gone on strike.
Yes, I think he was just.
But then he turns around and says, "If you're in the visual effects industry, I'd be worried."
Right. I love that too. I did. I actually, you're right, because I thought that was a little bit some hubris there. It's like, oh, it's never going to replace 2 people, 3 people.
Never
in a
replace
room.
actors. Not us
Right.
actors.
Not us actors.
Us
Yeah.
thespians, we're too important.
Right. I'm like, trust me, you all are the first people because you all get the biggest paychecks, and they're going to be the first people to go. I mean, I'm telling you, the fact that you can marry CG imagery very convincingly with an AI voice or an AI imitated it's going to be, we're not even, I think, 1 generation away from getting a fully AI Tom Cruise. And what I mean by that is you will have an AI celebrity. I'll put it that way. You will have an AI celebrity that will be well known and liked by everyone. Now, whether it morphs and changes. That's right.
He's ready.
His estate will allow it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but it is. It's interesting because I'm like, I don't think we're that far off. And how it's going to, interact in terms of, you projecting its persona onto it, and it interacts with each individual differently based on what you like. I don't know if we're quite there, because that takes a lot of heavy lifting on the back end. But no doubt, the moment that you see a studio create this likeness and it garners any kind of attention and any kind of well regarded reception, 100%.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Why would you pay a personality like an RDJ hundreds of millions of dollars to be in these movies when you just got this profile built on a computer that imitates exactly what you're hoping to imitate, that everybody can look at and say, oh, well, that's an A-lister right there? I mean, if regardless of, this is kind of what we were just talking about last week in terms of ushering back into that celebrity culture of, I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your personal beliefs are. I actually just sometimes, I used to think Whoopi Goldberg wasn't a crazy loon. She was an awesome actress in Ghost and
Sister
as a
Act.
hyena in Lion King.
I
and
love the
Sister
Sister Act movies, and I'm just like, it's a shame that it's like, why can't we have that Whoopi who makes us laugh and not talk crazy crap?
I mean, even then, it's like they didn't learn from the real royals over in England, which is what we consider our celebrities here. They're our royalty.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you don't see Prince William's
taking a crap. You don't see that. And it's like, no, we got to listen to you and your, the crap you spew out of your face on TikTok and on Instagram, because you don't realize that, no, just because you're well known by millions of people doesn't mean that your opinion is certified gold.
That's the hubris that annoys me, is they think because they're so famous and because everybody sees them every day that somehow they have like this insight into what is best for people, and that they need to use their platform as being famous to tell people, hey, you all are stupid, you need to listen to us. And I'm just like, that audiences are tired of it. They've proven they're tired of being preached and talked down to.
Speaking of that,
that
was a good segue.
It was.
I waited till we were pretty well into the show, because I don't want to really get into.
We don't get too much.
Too many.
I just want to make fun of Rachel Zegler. Can we make fun of Rachel Zegler?
Yeah, we can do that. She deserves to be made fun of
because she's the dumbest person. I used to think so many people were bad, and she just keeps putting her foot in her mouth.
She does. I don't know how many times that woman has got to be told.
Like,
by
she's
her
worse
publicist.
than Brie Larson now.
Oh, she's terrible.
I'm just like, you just won't shut up.
Nope. She constantly has to be told by her publicist, you got to come up with a statement, you got to retract that, you got to apologize. Look,
for those who don't know, I don't know if you want to fill them in about her big post on X, hoping that people who voted for Trump die and have horrific accidents. I'm
I don't think she said. I don't think she said die. She said they should never live comfortably, or they should always be miserable.
She said something about like not implying like them hurt themselves.
I think she wished for their death.
But I mean,
I don't think she said that.
I don't think she said that.
But she got pretty bad into. I was gonna pull it up actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Because
I'm trying to find the tweet.
Well, she might have deleted it. They might have actually.
She deleted. Well, I mean, it's still online. Whether she deleted it or not,
you could find it somewhere. Definitely, if you dig around long enough. But we're obviously talking about the.
She should have had them help. They were all in horrible accidents. So
what?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I've seen people talk about, I hope your daughter gets raped and can't.
Oh yeah.
Can't get the health care she needs and all this stuff. And I'm like,
I mean, we're not going back. I don't think they've quite gone back 8 years to the point of like Kathy Griffin holding up a severed, effigy of Donald Trump's head. But they would like to.
Yeah, she said, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace."
Yeah,
is one of the things that she said.
That was the one that I knew that went viral, right after.
Well, it was worse than that. I was trying to find the whole thing, because that's the only line in this article.
But we're pinpointing Rachel Zegler because she was forced to. Honestly, Disney could do themselves a huge favor and truthfully just cancel the Snow White movie.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking forward to it. We already know the crappy CGI. You went back to try to rotoscope over the actual dwarves that you got, the live action dwarves in the film, and you went back and added animated figures that look like horrible garbage. And then Rachel Zegler on top of it is not doing you any favors. Why you would ever think to give this woman another job, whether you're Disney or any other studio in Hollywood.
What kills me is that they fired Gina Carano for saying something nowhere near as bad. Yeah. And then Rachel Zegler's just, in her apology, she's like, I let my emotions get the best of me. Like, that's an actual quote from her.
Right.
And it's like, oh, so that's okay. You can wish that Trump supporters
Which is funny because Gina Carano's case is still ongoing and has been not only going through the courts, but Disney has failed to get the court case dismissed.
Yeah.
And this is just adding cannon fodder to their canon. I mean, it's like this is what's great about all of this coming out, because look at the reaction of Disney. They're doing nothing. Right? It's like behind the scenes, they're saying, like, what are you doing? Like, shut up, get out there and apologize. But they're not firing her. They're not kicking her off any, tours that we know of. It's like she's just still continued to be who she is without any real repercussions. And it's the double standard that people get tired of.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, in general, kind of what we're talking about is just the Hollywood election fallout is just, look, I think, I don't want to get too political, but it's hard to ignore because there were so many celebrities, especially from Hollywood, that came out in support of the other side that clearly were not happy with the results of the election 3 weeks ago.
Well, they're all moving.
And they're all going
to move. They were doing that once before, so I mean,
exactly.
They always do that.
But they're really going to do it this time.
Well, Eva Longoria, she actually came out and said she was, and then it was like a day or so later she retracted and said, no, I'm an American. I'm staying here.
Yeah.
So she's staking her claim. She's planting her flag.
Yeah.
We're so lucky to have Eva here on our side as Americans. But I think it just points to, just like with Rachel Zegler's double standard,
this Hollywood double standard of, again, how can you make movies and be these adult pretenders that you are, somehow believing that you relate to the common man when you don't understand the common man. And if there's any inclination of the detachment of the Hollywood elites separated from normal everyday folk, it was this last election. Because I think what they're having to come to terms with ultimately is the bubbles that they live in are so apparent now because they not only lost the election in terms of, again, Orange Man Bad Hitler running and winning, but also that he won the popular vote, which then completely erodes their credibility in terms of fighting on behalf of this so-called purpose that they have, and again, digging their heels in deeper into the sand because, we shall not be moved. Mm-hmm. This is the cause that they're fighting for. It upends their entire worldview. And so they come back battered and bruised, and that's how you get Kimmel on late night. I mean, that's the thing. Late night used to take punches at everybody. All sides. They used to be the South Park of, yesteryear, but without any of the crassness. And you can't have that now because you have Jimmy Kimmel, you have Jimmy Fallon, you have Stephen Colbert is just god-awful. I mean, all of these guys have turned their platform into nothing but just political dog whistles and dogma that they just spew every night. You have no entertainment anymore. There is no lighthearted nature. I can't tell you how many promos I've seen of Colbert where leading up to the election it was a senator or it was Kamala coming on. It was some Democratic left-leaning politician that came onto his show because he was clearly browbeating for him. But I'm just like, dude, can you not just have an actor on that just doesn't spew any political garbage, but just either promotes their movie or is just there to entertain?
I mean, the host can't stop from spewing political. So, I mean, of course, they're not going to refrain from having guests that do the same.
And I think it's clear to see, maybe not so much in Red One, because I will say this about the last few movies that we've reviewed, and it really has seemed to be a paradigm shift in Hollywood. Slow, but sure to come. The wokeness, the DEI garbage, it really is starting to take a back seat. I think people are seeing the effect on the bottom line that it's having. And yet, unfortunately, it still is going to take some time to churn out, not because you may get rid of that, but you still have to have substance. And for the longest time, they replaced any of that substance with those DEI talking points, and that was their substance. And of course, because that didn't work, they've gotten rid of it. But now you have these very hollow platitudes that are kind of, like we saw in Red One, that don't really speak to anything but generic feel-goodness. And that can only go so far. I mean, it's going to take a generation of filmmakers, of artists, of actors to come out of the woodwork and really embrace uniqueness again. I mean, again, you're going to have to see a renaissance of, hey, give me something I haven't seen before. Actually take a risk. Give me, heaven forbid. I mean, funny enough, but an older actress who's come out and basically said that the election proved that wokeness is dead was Justine Bateman.
Yeah.
From Family Ties fame.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm like, she has even said that there's been a cultural shift that's been happening underneath everything that's been going on silently, but, kind of quietly, just nobody's wanted to really speak up about it. And it's almost like this election has certified that, no, everybody's tired of it.
Yeah.
Everybody's tired of feeling like they're suppressed to speak their mind or to talk on a certain subject matter, and they feel like they can't, they got to walk on eggshells about every single topic. So what are your all's take on that? Are you starting to see it? Do you think it's coming? Do you think it's going to take longer?
I actually think it started a little bit earlier with comedians. I feel 100%. Like comedians took a stand against the woke and PC culture. I think they realized that it was to their benefit. And I don't know if some of them just jumped on the bandwagon because it was making them money and that the people were laughing. Or if you have people like Chappelle that definitely speak out against it, and to be fair,
that never even went there.
Yeah. Well, he also is pretty even-handed in his jokes.
Yeah.
True.
He'll joke on Christianity just as much as he'll joke on trans people, and so I'll at least you're being fair. Whereas even Ricky Gervais, like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he come out swinging, not just at the Golden Globes
Yeah,
that he did,
yeah.
and some of his stand-up stuff, even in interviews and everything. You can just tell that I think the PC culture definitely hit comedians really hard. And I think because they were, they tell a joke and people get up and leave. And it's like, well, I mean, at least they paid for a ticket to get there. They're not getting their money back. But then some people wouldn't come. And I think they started, not necessarily started it, but it started earlier with comedians being some of the ones that started changing their tone first.
Well, at least I think I think you're right, but also standing their ground.
Yeah.
I think, and just not, like you said, when the people got up and left or they got yelled at and they got berated.
Yeah, they're just
they
like,
dug in
well,
deeper
F
and
you,
they
get out of here.
And they were just like,
can't handle gay jokes, get out.
right.
It's
No,
like,
100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we've seen that cultural shift of not only rewarding it by kind of them being on the fringe and the edge, and a lot of them are just like, I've always told these jokes, like this is how I got to where I'm at anyway.
Yeah.
But it heightened it because people weren't getting it from movie. I mean, what was it? I saw Jack Vazovic posted something the other day, and he was like, I just rewatched for the hell of it, Euro trip.
Yeah.
He's like back in the day, and he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, there's no way this movie would be made.
Not even a good movie, but,
No.
but it wouldn't.
But
But it
that's
wouldn't be
the thing.
made. Yeah,
It wouldn't be made because of the content, but also it was kind of, at the time it came out, it was already well past its era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at a point where I'm just like, you even then it was kind of, I was rolling my eyes and I wasn't even old enough to see it, but I thought, oh, another one of those dumb college frat guy movies that just has dirty humor in it. And it's like, again, there's part of me that longs for that because
because Hollywood won't make it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's not even that I yearn to have it as much as even Lady Ballers. It's like, wasn't a great movie, but the idea and the premise behind it was to joke on how this was something that if you can't even laugh at it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the fact that you're going to think in a country that has built itself on free speech and the bedrock to say whatever you think is going to somehow kowtow to those who say, but not that.
Yeah.
Not that subject matter. You can't go there. Bull crap. I'll
Yeah.
go wherever I want.
Alan Covert recently, the star from Grandma's Boy, he's pretty much
Yeah,
only done
yeah.
Happy Madison
Yeah,
movies.
Adam
with,
Sandler movies. Yeah.
He mentioned that they won't make comedies like that anymore, like Grandma's Boy, like he was in.
Grandma's
He said,
Boys,
he said he was watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off with his kids. And he said they don't make movies like that. And he said he doesn't understand why. He's like, that was his job. Like, his whole career has only been those type of movies.
Yep.
And he said he doesn't have a career anymore because they won't make those movies.
Yeah. But the thing is, too, is that, and I think you're starting to see that tide turn.
Yeah.
And I think not only is it, I think, resonated within the election, I think it again, it is. It's a sense of a greater cultural shift of people getting tired of putting up with it. And you realizing that it's no longer about appeasing a certain crowd and just trying to play nice. It's like, oh, so even if I ignore you, I'm still going to be beat over the head with this. And if I don't go along with it, then now I'm a bad person. Like, screw you.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way it can, the argument has been able to withstand for as long as it has, is people going along with the mentality of I've got to go along with this DEI stuff and this woke stuff.
And I think that's what's even sadder, is because I agree with Sean. I think we've already begun to see the change even before the election because people were tired of it. You see it in other areas, but sadly, Hollywood's going to be the last to change. Certainly, any movies coming out within the next year, like they were already in production. So there's not going to be any, I think, huge changes there other than maybe the slight ones like Inside Out 2, where they dialed back because they knew people were pushing up against them. But it's not going to be like Hollywood's going to do this complete 180.
Oh, heck
It's
no.
going to take many, many years, if at all, because they're so stubborn.
And honestly, to piggyback off of that, that kind of brings us into another one of our headlines, and it's a big one. But Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Talking about how, this whole idea of women empowerment. I mean,
it's
when
all just BS?
And that's the thing. When you cut through the BS and you
Yeah.
get down to the nuts and bolts of how the industry works, okay, you can throw out all the woke initiatives and DEI nonsense you want, and maybe even be strict about, oh, well, the Oscars, our most prestigious award ceremony, is going to have to fit into these categories to get nominated.
you can throw all that criteria all you want. That's the big picture. Again, it's shoehorning a cultural shift that isn't natural. It's not organic.
Yeah.
Therefore, it can't take hold. And just like Sydney Sweeney said in this Variety piece, we'll have it linked in the description below. But she was specifically talking about how it's all fake.
Yeah.
You know, you have nothing but women who are dog eat dog.
Yep.
And when it comes down to it, they talk about women empowerment on camera to other women, but at the end of the day, they're trying to beat you down to take your spot because they think there can only be
So
one.
meanwhile, they're saying whatever they want about you behind your back.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's interesting,
believe it.
too, because I hate to say it, but it's like, and it's not like she doesn't know this, because I think part of her argument is, again, I'm not going to blame her. She's still young.
Yeah.
But also I think part of it comes from the, I really do want to build up women. And, there's this naivete about, I'm saying this because I think it will actually insinuate or cause change. And it's like, no, the problem is you're a beautiful young actress who's got beautiful breasts that men adore.
I'm looking right now.
And,
But
the reason why I'm bringing it,
I think it's funny the article goes out of its way to post a picture
of
her.
course.
Yeah.
But there's also that
the reason I'm being so, obvious about pointing out her beautiful assets.
Well, there's a part
is
of why she's
because-
popular, yeah.
But there's also a part of why she's targeted.
Yeah, because other
And that's where
women feel threatened or jealous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that the reason you don't have this woman, because the people who are parading around talking about women empowerment are, as long as you're not more empowered than me.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm the one that can dole out that, and I can talk from on my high horse from the elite status, well, as long as you don't rise above me, then we're okay. It's even keel.
And she kind of mentions, I disagree with her reasoning for it, but she mentions how, like, women have the mindset of there can only be one top female, so they're constantly trying to be at the top and pushing it. She says it's because we're taught that there can only. I was like, I disagree with that.
Exactly.
I disagree with that.
I don't agree
but
with
I do agree with her that I've known plenty of women that they do. They that dog eat dog. I'm going to tear you down to make sure I get above you. And not to say that men don't compete either, but I mean completely different.
Well,
in my mindset.
the one person in this article that is being mentioned is some producer, who said she just didn't get the Sydney Sweeney like craze that she saw on a flight back to her city, her hometown. She watched that her and Glenn Powell.
Anyone But You.
Anyone But You.
Yeah.
She watched it and she said, she's like, the woman can't act. She's not that good looking.
I did read
and
that.
So she's a professor as well as a producer. And she said she went to her class and asked them, she was like, I just don't get it. Can you all tell me what's so great about her? And she said, not one of them could give me a reason. I'm like, one, you can't ask your class of students in which their grade is dependent upon. And clearly you state your case as to why you're so bitter based on the way it's phrased, that they're not going to speak up to you candidly and tell you what they really
and I guarantee
think.
you in a
Because they
class
would
like
tell
that,
you to go eat crow because she's freaking gorgeous and she's hot and you look like a dog. But she doesn't want to hear the truth because, again, we're living in a world and a reality right now where Hollywood is so high on their own fumes in the bubble that they live in that they don't want to live in reality. So they can literally have those opinions and just think that they're the sane one.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Hollywood is the only industry where they'll be like, oh, we hate pretty people. Like, we only want to promote the ugly people, but we'll only put pretty people in the movies because that's all that sells.
Right.
It's like they'll say one thing, but it's obviously you're not putting all your lead stars as ugly people no one wants to watch because you know it doesn't sell.
Right. Or the ones that do, exactly. The opposite happens. It doesn't sell.
Or tanks,
Or you have these innocent approaches, or even something that's based on a book, like the one that came out with Blake Lively. It happened to coincide. That was not only popular, but then you also had it released on the back end of her husband's film, Deadpool Wolverine, and you got this kind of 1-2 punch, one for the guys, one for the women.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, heaven
Oppenheimer and
forbid.
Barbie.
They wanted to recreate it. It was almost incidentally there. But you have this weird idea of, oh, wow, maybe men and women have different tastes. That's taboo. Can't say
weird.
that. And then, heaven forbid, if you're actually a good-looking woman, we can't admit that. There is no objectivity there. And that's the preposterous nature of it. Because if you really... And that's why I think, like I said, I blame it a little bit more on naivete, and who knows, maybe I could see her being innocently honest in this, Variety article or interview. But what I think is funny is I'm like, all it would take is one person of notable
of notoriety to have backlash on her for her to do a 180 on her opinion. She'll come out
She'll
groveling.
be apologizing just like Rachel Ziegler
exactly,
is.
tenfold. Tenfold. And that's the real issue here. Is it's like the fact that you wouldn't even be able to state your own opinion in this regard without having to do that flip. Now, hopefully she stands her ground. So far, she's shown no sign of backing down, because at the end of the day, what is more important? What is more important, and I think if anything, also what is an important takeaway from the election and how celebrity and Hollywood reacted is the truth wins out. And when you actually have to take a little bit of that dose of medicine of, oh my, I was wrong about this opinion, or I have to eat crow because maybe
No, they'll never do that.
well, no, they don't. They won't publicly.
No, yeah.
They have to privately.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they will die.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If that is the role you accept, then Hollywood will wither, and it will continue to just over the years wither and decay, become more and more meaningless. And the only ones who will benefit are the ones who actually want to come out of their bubble, who actually want to do what they all say and claim they want to do, which is be the adult pretenders they are and do their job well, because there are going to be enough of those, like your Sydney Sweeneys or up and comings, who actually just want to, make it their livelihood, who saw the silver screen stars of yesteryear and thought, man, I'd love to do that. I mean, we were just talking about it with Glenn Powell, how so far he's made all the right moves. Yeah. He's not, dipped his toe in controversial waters. Now, I'm sure if you go dig up something, he's probably said whatever he could to get on the bandwagon in their good graces, because that's still the Hollywood ilk that runs things. But I do think there's a sea change coming simply because it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
And it's a cultural shift that at the end of the day, the execs in the boardrooms look at their bottom dollar and they say, well, crap, we can't keep pursuing this because we're losing money. We have to go a different route. And it's just a matter of time. Yep. And if they want to ride this ship out and sink on it, okay.
That's just it. And then if Hollywood collapses, that's fine, because like we've talked about, there's plenty of other markets out there making films, and it'll just change shape. Hollywood won't move. The movie industry won't die. Hollywood might, but the movie industry won't.
100%.
So, but I think we went into that a lot more than we intended.
No, that was great. Yeah. I think that nicely wrapped a bow up on all of that conversation.
I just wanted to make fun of Rachel Ziegler.
Rightfully so. I really do think Disney is doing an injustice by not just canning her. They just need.
I think they just want to.
I bet after Snow White,
Yeah. She's not going to have much of a career other than smaller.
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, she will literally have to go away for such a long time, and she'll make some kind of comeback role that's so small, and she will do nothing but just be happy that she's back on the silver screen. I mean, she will be cast out into oblivion.
That'll be a flop at the bottom, a huge flop.
Oh yeah, Snow White's not
go
going anywhere. They really do need to make that a Disney Plus launch.
Yeah,
don't do it in theaters and just kind of
they just need to
forget about it. Yeah. It's done. Alrighty, let's get into our vices topic. Alrighty. He got that one in there.
Well, Rachel Ziegler deserves
That's
it.
a vice.
Yep.
Hating Rachel Ziegler.
All right, Dan.
He does. That's his vice. He loves pushing them buttons.
I do.
He does. He
Just those two. I like pushing the others, but
you like that it's working.
Well, there's only two. It's working and
all right then.
Well, that's not. I didn't count that one as the two.
Yeah,
I don't push that one
That's
off.
not normal. No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the lower at the bottom of the screen says it all. What's one thing you get really impatient about?
Easy.
Oh, you had it right off the bat.
The internet.
Okay.
I have. It's coming from the dial-up era. I don't know why I'm so impatient, but I just expect web pages to load when I click the link, and when I freaking get the 404 errors and and this page is unavailable and all these things, it drives me insane. Like I remember, and this might be TMI, but back in the day when it was AOL dial-up and, you got your discs in the mail with all your free hours of AOL, and you're trying to look at naked lady pictures on the internet, and it takes 20 minutes to load an image, like eventually, I can remember sitting 20 minutes and waiting and waiting and waiting.
Just to get a
look.
look.
I'll tell you what would piss me off the most about that was the image would load from the top or from the bottom to the top. So it was like 15 minutes and I'm at her knees. And then it wasn't until like it was almost fully loaded before you saw the top, which is what I was going for. But I was patient and I would sit and wait. I would drink 3 Mountain Dews before that image would load. But now
it's kind of like marriage. Then.
It's supposed to be
just wait.
It's supposed to be instant. When I click on a link, it's supposed to open, and when the internet is just taking a nap, I lose my crap with it. I close the browser. I refresh, delete the cookies. I delete all the crap that you're supposed to. I do everything.
Are you still trying to look at naked women?
No. I'm just saying I can freaking restart the computer quicker than the webpage would load, and it's like I do all these things, and it's still just decides it's on break right now, and the internet shouldn't take breaks. It shouldn't get a break, and it happens while I'm at freaking work, and I'm trying to look up people's insurance, and I got to go through these web portals, and they're like, my God, it loads and loads and loads, and I'm just like, I have no patience for it, dude. I don't.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I was gonna say mine's a little different, but it does tag onto a part of that I'll get into because it's more broader spectrum. I really have a lot of impatience when my time is wasted by something that. What I would say just incompetence, whether it's like getting on something at work that's not working because IT's incompetent, or if it's standing in a grocery line for way longer than I need to because the cashier doesn't know how to
That's another story.
do something I had all kinds of stories like that where I waited behind this one lady because the sign said something was discounted. It didn't ring up right. The one cashier kept arguing with her. She's like, no, that sign says. So then she called for a manager. And then the manager's like, oh, no, we got to give it to her like this. I was like, why would you argue with the patient to begin? Or not the patient, sorry.
He's still at work.
Yeah. Why would you argue with the customer to begin with and tell them they're wrong? That's not what the sign's like. It's like she was like, it probably meant this. It's like, no, there's no probably it meant this. It's like you find out for sure and give her the price that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And but besides that, just anything. Even like when I worked like in the restaurant industry and I was training people, and it's like I'm not talking about you're new, you don't know how to do something. It's like I've shown you how to do something 3 or 4 times, and you can't do it, or like you're just. It's like especially like restaurant work like isn't that overly complicated. Yeah, the cooking aspect can be, I guess, is like whether you're a good cook or not, but other things as simple as like cleaning something properly, and I'm like, how can people be so stupid? And when I have to like wait over and over or show you something over and over and over again, or people that what really makes me mad is I just can't learn this. It's like, no, you're not trying to learn.
Yeah,
and
I can't stand
it's like
that
I
either.
understand sometimes there's a generational gap and so, like with technology and stuff like that. I get things like that.
There's a difference between that and laziness.
But when someone's just like, I don't understand why they do it this way, I can't ever learn that. It's like, well, then you're not trying to learn it. At that point, I don't have time for you. Get out.
Yeah.
So like, things like that really, like I get really impatient because I just want to be like, I just want to strangle you because you're wasting my time.
I think I don't want to take away from your time, but I do just want to add to that and just say, because you just like took me to that.
Yeah.
But foreigners on the phone.
Yeah.
I deal with it every day.
Yeah.
Multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And I'm just being honest.
Absolutely.
Like, I hang up the phone and curse these people. Like, I mean, literally, I'm like, I curse you. I hope your phone explodes against your ear the next time you go to answer. I cannot stand the fact that we don't have people in this country answering phones for the companies that are in this country.
Yeah.
That pisses me off to no end. And when I have to deal with these people and they can't speak English, I don't know how you got the job if you can't freaking speak English when you're talking to people in English. They give you phony names. Hello, this is John. Nice to talk to you today. And then 20 minutes later, it's like, okay, thank you for calling. My name is Fred. Goodbye. And it's like, you have a list of fake names that you give people. I'm like, don't give me your real name. I know your real name's Hashish. Like, don't give me that crap. And I get these people that they just, they don't understand what you're saying, and you eventually have to yell it at them, and they still don't understand what you're saying, and you get nowhere. After a 30-minute conversation on the phone, you're back to square one. Nothing has been accomplished other than they got paid, and they shouldn't have because they did not do their job.
Yeah.
And so that is the other thing. I got to stop because I'm going to start throwing shit in a second. I got to stop.
Really mad about
it gets me so fired up talking to these people
I don't counter
every day.
that because I don't have to like do the job you do, but I do have to use a translator sometimes. And what makes me mad isn't like having to use the translator. That's fine. What makes me mad is when the translator can't translate because the translator can't speak English.
Yes.
And then I get really annoyed and
your
impatient
job?
because they have to go like we have to ask the same question, relay the same sentence over and over because the translator's like, wait, what is that? I don't under, like what? And I'm like, you're the translator. You should be able to speak both languages.
This is where AI is going to become incredibly invaluable.
I will gladly
I'm
talk
just
to an
saying.
AI.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you AI is going to take over that kind of job, like customer service. I mean, no
Yeah.
offense to you guys, because I know you do a little bit in that, but it's going to take over that, I think, more rapidly than any other business. Because, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the moment it can become conversational, or you could even speak to like an AI, and there's like a zero latency in terms of it translating and flipping immediately. It's like you could just carry on a conversation thinking you're literally talking to the patient, and it's like it's just going to understand the request back and forth. And that will very, very much take care of the problem that I 100% agree with. Because you're right. It's like it's also annoying just from a customer standpoint to be able to be rerouted to, sometimes I deal with this even at work. It's like you'll be calling the business line. This is not for your general population. This is like the business executive. Like we're supposed to be straight. Like we pay a specific price for a contract to have, business level service. And yet there are times where you'll get help from, again, a foreign country. It's like, okay, all they did was contract this out and outsource it to a foreign country. And then you're talking to people who are just walking you through basic troubleshooting that you're just like, all right, now
they're flipping. You can hear them flip through the pages.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they can't resolve the issue,
No.
and then then they have to transfer you back to a manager in States because once it gets so high up, that actually goes back.
Yeah.
And that annoys me too. It's like because they only give you that corporate spiel of reading the script of this is all we can do.
Did you restart your router?
Yeah.
Did you turn your computer off and turn it back on?
Right. Exactly. No, you're 100% right, and it's so flippin' annoying. No, mine. It kind of goes along with actually both of yours. Instead of it just being the internet, I would say impatience with technology in general.
Yeah.
Because and you're right. It's kind of it's a double-edged sword. You're right. Over the generations, we've gotten spoiled with how much it's not only invaded and taken over our lives, but how much more ease of use things are because of it, that now when it doesn't act accordingly like it's supposed to, again, the whole adage of how many times I've cursed Steve Jobs because it's like, oh, Apple, it doesn't just work. It that's the way it used to be. It doesn't now. And vice versa. I mean, even just little frustrations with, PCs and, there are days where you're dealing with it, especially if it's your job, and you're just like, I don't really want to deal with this stupid, minute issue right now. There's bigger things that are going on. But you have to deal with it because it's not working the way it was intended. So that's a level of impatience. And then sort of not in the vein of like customer service or incompetence, but more so, and I don't know really how to describe this. It just came to me today, not taking enough time to do nothing. I think we've kind of brought this up before on the show, but I'm so impatient now with just sitting still. Like, I think because of the way like social media has engineered us and just being constantly, whether it's in the know of what's going on or whether it's just like, oh, I shouldn't be using a second to just sit down and relax, but I need to be doing something, I think is indicative of where we are at in our culture and society of like, again, it's that idea of wasting time But sometimes, actually not doing anything is not wasting time. It's taking control of your time and treating it as valuable.
Actually, one of the reasons I love to go hunting, because whether I get a deer or not, it's
100%.
nice to just and out there, like you're in the woods, all you can do is sit and do nothing and wait for the deer. And at least then it's like, well, I'm not wasting my time. I'm hunting. But it's great just to be out there in the woods.
Yeah. To piggyback off of that, when we go to the lake trip, it is. I've told you all before, and I mean, I've now got to where my phone does get service down there. But I used to like the fact that when we would go down there, my phone wouldn't have any service, and I was pretty much unreachable because it was a matter of like, okay, I'm escaping from the normal everyday doldrums to be able to relax, get away from the monotony and the noise, and actually just. I'll be honest with you. Working out recently, just really getting into that. It is a chore, it is a hassle, and sometimes it's hard to get out of bed and just push yourself to doing it. But not only do I feel so much better after the fact, but even in the midst of like going on my runs, it's the same kind of mentality. It's like once I start it and I'm in the middle of it, there are times where my mind wanders, but for the most part, it's like I have to like instinctively put myself back on like, no, this is my goal right now. This is where I'm aiming. Like I have to stay focused. And so in that instance, it's just nice because once I'm done and once, not only do you feel that rush and the, endorphins like kicking in of like feeling, like, okay, I just finished a run and I feel better, physically, but mentally it's like it clears your head. It's like I feel like I've actually accomplished something. Like it's just a nice peaceful break from, again, back into the grind, back into the hustle and bustle. And I don't know if it's just part of getting older or just, again, the generation that we live in with technology and always constantly being, connected.
Yeah.
It's like I always feel like if I'm not, doing something with my time, then I'm wasting it. Yeah. And I think that's what I've become impatient about patience, which is not good.
Have patience.
Yeah.
This is slightly off topic, but it'll be real fast since we can wrap up. But I do have a funny story because you mentioned not having service at the lake and stuff. And there was a time we didn't have service at the lake or the farm or anything like that. And actually,
cell phones.
And we get a little bit of service at the farm now. And it was just funny because I do remember I texted y'all a little bit when I first got out there the first day. But like, I think it was the second day we're sitting out there, and it rained most of the day anyways, so it wasn't a huge deal. But I'm sitting there, and I keep getting these notifications on my watch.
Sorry.
My phone, and I start laughing because it's notifications from the Sleeper app, our fantasy football team that we're in.
Oh, yeah.
And it's my dad who's sitting like 70 yards in the blind other way, swapping out his roster to try to win in fantasy. I was like, he's sitting here and they're like, while it's raining out here, like just on his phone, like he's supposed to be hunting. I'm just sitting there laughing.
Even the parents aren't able to escape it.
I was like, I'm just laughing because I was like, like 5 years ago we couldn't do that. Now he's just there. It's like, well, it's raining. There's no deer. I'm going to swap out my roster.
And that's
in the middle of the woods.
I do the
blind.
exact same thing. Like I there's like a little bit of time in the morning where I want to drink my coffee and just kind of relax before I got to get up and get dressed, and it's like a nice half hour. Sometimes if I'm lucky, get an hour to just after I've done my workout, I can kind of really sit down and relax and wake up. And it's odd because I even feel like when I'm sitting there doing that. Like I've got to be on X or I've got to, start scrolling through. I got to think about, what do I got to do for the rest of the week? Like there's not a moment to just sit down and do nothing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, it's taking a moment like that where you're just sitting here like, well, I ain't got nothing else to do. I could do this. And it's like, no, just stop and enjoy the moment and relax. It's like, you don't have to be going 100% all the time.
Yeah, you do. Go till you die.
Thanks, Keith.
You got to be like Ben Affleck in that video.
That's right.
Like,
coked up. He was.
That was great.
I mean,
he was ready.
Hey, he sounded intelligent when he said it, though.
Yeah. He did. I mean, he's still got some kind of brain up there. I mean, he 2 failed marriages and a second woman. Yeah. I think he's gonna go back to Jennifer Garner.
That'd be funny.
I think it's
just keep going back and forth.
That would be amazing.
I think she'll look.
She's married, ain't she?
I don't know if she got remarried.
Yeah, I don't think so.
know. They got like two or three kids.
They
I
do
can't
have
remember.
kids.
She should be. I bet she's a good
J-Lo,
woman.
J-Lo, she just wanted to be the hero and
That
think
was
she could save him.
stupid.
She's
that was
dumb.
them getting back together.
That
The
was
whole
just
thing
dumb.
stupid.
I mean, just dumb.
It was as dumb as Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe on all of our social media accounts right there at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X, Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course, search for Red Moon Productions on both Rumble and YouTube. We appreciate all the love there. There is that old way. We said it last week, but we didn't do it justice, Keith. We didn't do it justice. That old way of reaching out to us.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Oh man! Oh, every time I can't get enough of it.
Delicious.
Can you do it one more time, just because last week
One more.
you
Okay.
missed last week?
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Whew. Oh, all right, I can't take any more. It's just too much. Alrighty, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. The big movie next week that we're reviewing, Gladiator. No, we're gonna do Wicked. Screw Gladiator 2.
Wicked's gonna break the box office.
It's gonna
It's gonna dominate.
it's just gonna dominate everything.
Yeah.
I was gonna hit that high note. But
Time. She's coming
she
over.
She is. She's ready. She's like, she knows.
She's
She's
done.
like,
She's
you're,
been
You're
done.
running late.
Alrighty, guys. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
bye.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.